Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Machine Shop Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Kirk Phelps. And today I wanted to kind of change gears a little bit. We've been really driving hard into efficiencies, you know, knowing your equipment effectiveness, um, understanding some standardization things, or sorry, when I say equipment effectiveness, we're talking about OEE, right? Getting into standardization, how to improve throughput, how to improve processes, prepare for unattended lights out machining, all those kind of things. And so I'm trying to keep, when I'm making this content, I'm trying to, without jumping around erratically, um, trying to give different viewpoints for different things throughout a shop, right? We're machine shop growth. And what we're looking at is, like we've said before a million times, top line, bottom line, people. And so today I want to kind of get into a little bit more of the people aspect, and namely the younger people in the trade, guys younger in their career, girls younger in their career. You're kind of starting out and don't know where to go. Hey, I just got out of high school, I just got out of trade school, I just got out of whatever it is, and I'm standing at the machine, hitting a green button, doing everything I'm told. How do I, where do I go from here? Am I just going to sit here and at this machine my entire life? And so, you know, gotten a ton of feedback lately from people listening, and greatly appreciate it. I love hearing getting the feedback and saying, hey, look, I love the content you guys are putting out. It's really helped me. Got some good ideas from it. That's what I'm here for. That's what I wanted to do this for no other reason but sharing information and you know illustrating that there's still great opportunity within manufacturing. No matter what anybody says, no matter what anybody thinks, AI this, tech that, don't care. Manufacturing is here, it's here to stay, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Um, so, you know, this doesn't just apply to young machinists, you know, getting out of school. This applies to young business owners as well. I've had a couple people reach out. One was 25 years old, started his own machine shop. There's more and more young people starting out, and what this is really for is kind of the how you get there. You know where you are right now, but what are your options? So when you start in manufacturing, and it's more specifically in machining, there's a pretty uh, general first step. You're going to start a machine. You're going to start as an operator. Maybe you help do some other things around the shop, kind of go for your delivery driver. You help pack parts, sweep floors, whatever, right? Um, First step to getting off of there and getting out of there, getting some more responsibility, getting some more trust is one, initiative. You know, you need to, as Jim Harbaugh said, attack every day with enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Um, you know, every day you show up, you're ready. You're ready to get to work, and you're ready to take on that next challenge. Truth be told, I have built a career out of doing the things nobody else wanted to do. You know, I worked in an injection and thermoform mold shop for years, and where I became so valuable was I didn't care. You want to go climb in that grease filled machine? I'm in. I'll go figure out what the problem is and I'll fix it. You know, there's things that would come up that some of the other guys I worked with are like, I don't want to do that. I get paid the same no matter what. I mean, I said a million times before, and Mike and I've had this conversation. I was like, if somebody came to me and said, I'll give you whatever, whatever salary comparable to manufacturing, or greater manufacturing. All you got to do is just go shovel shit for a living. I shovel shit all day. I don't care. You know, um, I'm not too proud to do anything. I'm not above anything. And I would say, that's another attribute you got to have is you got to be a little bit humble. You can't ever hold your nose up at something and say, I'm better than that. I worked with a guy once in a shop that we had a foundry in. We had to go hand pour aluminum fan molds, and there was some most of the foundry guys could handle some of the smaller parts, but they had certain parts where we'd have four, five, six gates in it, and you had to pour the molten aluminum all at the same time, or it would cool and it wouldn't fuse, and all that kind of stuff. So they would come get the guys from the machine shop to come over and help pour molds. Have one guy that absolutely refused. He's like, they don't pay me to pour molds. They pay me to make programs and do this and that. And just that overall total arrogance that it doesn't get you anywhere. You know, if you work for a company, that company pays you to do what needs done, no matter what. I mean, especially when you work in a small job shop, you might be a machinist today, you might be an electrician tomorrow, a plumber the next day, maybe you're an HVAC guy one day, because these are all things that have to be done in the shop. And it's either we pay the guys that are already here to do it, or we pay somebody outside to do it. And when you're a small shop and you're tight on cash and all those kind of things, you've got to be multi-talented. You've got to be multi-purpose. So, always be humble, and don't refuse to take or do something that, maybe is a little bit below your skill level, because when people see that, they acknowledge that, like, hey, this guy is, or girl, they're willing to do what needs done. They remember those things. And when it comes time for a good job that comes around, hey, we're going to give this to them because they've been eating shit for months. We're going to give this to them, kind of give them a break or whatever. So I think that being humble and having some humility about you is probably one of the most valuable attributes you can possibly have throughout your manufacturing career. Because there's a lot of, there's no mystery. There's a ton of arrogance in this trade. Good God, is there a ton of arrogance? And comes to the next one of confidence, right? There is a distinct difference between confidence and arrogance. There's two things in life that I am extremely confident in: my job and my ability to play soccer. Those two things, I know I am good at them. I know that. But that doesn't mean that I have to carry myself in a way that makes, how do you say this? That diminishes other people's knowledge and abilities, right? I'm not here to put anybody down. I've played goalie and center defender for years. I mean, since I could walk, pretty much. I'm not going to go tell somebody else I'm better than them, or they're not as good as me, or whatever. And quite frankly, I'm not here to give people advice either. If I'm playing in a soccer game against a competitor and I see them do something, I'm not going to walk over and be like, "Hey, you should have done this differently." I'm not here for unsolicited advice. You know, Same thing when I go play golf. Like, hey, why don't you try this with your swing? Why don't you mind your business? You know what I mean? Like, and then don't get me wrong. Like, I'm totally in for any suggestions to improve my golf swing, because about every third shot, I slice it into the next fairway. So I'm in. Somebody can help me fix that, please give me a call. But the point is, a lot of times when you're in machining, there's a lot of subjective things. The way you hold a part, the way your machining strategy. I can program a part 10 different ways. Every one of them's going to make a good part. But somebody of every way, somebody would come up and correct everything, because the arrogance, right? Nobody can do this as good as me. Nobody's as smart as me. Nobody's as fast as me. Nobody's, whatever the thought is. And so that's where I say there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Lack of confidence will hold you back in this trade more than anything else, because if you want to progress, right, the only way to make more money is to take more responsibility, period. No matter how much you boil it down, you could be a machinist in the same shop and you get a raise. They're going to expect you to make more complex parts. That's more responsibility, right? Maybe they're going to expect you to do some setup or responsibility. Maybe they're going to ask you to manage a cell. Maybe they're going to ask you to, supervise 3 or 4 people. These are all additional responsibilities. And if you don't have the confidence that you can handle it, you can handle that next step up, you're not going to progress. Okay. So what this is all about: personal growth, personal progression, all these things. This is the stuff you need to have in order to get that. So I want you to think about when you very first started machining. maybe, you cut some metal here and there with a Dremel or something as a kid or whatever. And think about when you very first cut your first piece of metal and when you made your first part. And, especially like when I was in school, didn't care, I was just having fun. Like I can remember, in fact, me and a few of my buddies, we used to, we would go find the biggest piece of aluminum we could. And we would, we would go to, so we had, jobs at the end of the day that were split up between everybody. And there were four aisles that people had to sweep. And whoever we wanted to mess with that day, whatever aisle the person was responsible for sweeping, me and three or four other guys would go back there with this big block of aluminum, and we'd crank a face mill up as fast as it would go on a Bridgeport, and we would just turn that whole block of aluminum into chips. But it was fun, right? We were just having fun, and you think nothing to learn there. Wrong. It was, because what I learned there is how fast I could make aluminum disappear on a Bridgeport. So when I went to work and I watched guys, slowly cranking that thing, no way, man. Max RPM, and let's just rip it. So we were learning, right? But the point is not that. The point is a lack of fear. I wasn't afraid. And I wasn't afraid in school because there were no repercussions if you screwed up. We just go get another piece of material. We just start over. No big deal. Are there repercussions in a shop? Sort of. The way I make decisions is risk assessment on everything. Okay. When you go to make a part, there's probably a 95% chance when you go to start it, you're going to be right. You'll be fine. You know what you're doing. You know that through your experience, through your, history and everything else, that what you're doing is the right thing to do. There's a 5% chance you're not. And, you know, applying that to growth is the same concept. Every time you take a bigger challenge, there's a 95% chance you're going to knock that thing right out of the park. Why let that 5% hold you back? Why let that, what if that, oh man, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Or am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I fast enough? No, no, you got a 5 out of 100 chance that that's going to be the outcome. And truly, if you've done these other things, right, you come with intensity every day, you come with initiative, you're humble, you have humility. If it does happen to be that 5% that stumps you, your employer is going to be willing to put the time into you to train you, to get you whatever you need to overcome that 5%. So the only thing holding you back is you. I mean, another great example, this podcast. I have it. I've let it happen to me a few times in my career. I wanted to start this podcast, and I talked to Mike about it. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this, but I'm trying to line up all this. I'm trying to make sure everything is perfect, dialed in, ready to go when we launch. And Mike's like, no, let's just do it. Why wait? If you wait till it's perfect, you'll never do it, right? And so we just sent it, and here we are. Um, I have a. I'll give you let me give the PG version of this statement, but I have a statement I live by, and you can't be a sissy all your life. And I've used this, and I had a couple of apprentices called me and was like, "Dude, I was having a hard day at work, and I was confused. I wasn't sure what to do, and I just remember what you always told me." And I said, "Hell with it." And I just went for it, and everything was. And I told him, like, "Let me guess, everything was fine, right?" Yeah, yeah, everything's great. It was awesome. I made the part faster than anybody else, and all this stuff. I'm not saying that you just wing it, shoot from the hip, you know, it's like it's the Wild West. Not what I'm saying at all. Am I going to tell myself, we're being a sissy, go run across that highway? No, because that's a horrible risk assessment, right? Horrible. These cars are going 65 to 80 miles an hour, depending. If there's heavy traffic, I'm not Frogger, right? But what I am saying is, if you make this risk assessment, I'll give you a great example. We had a machine once that I can't remember exactly what happened, but the batteries died and we had to reload some parameters. And then we reloaded the parameters. A couple pages came up blank, and it gave us a message. It was tool offset pages. There's nothing on it, nothing, totally blank, unusable. And it gave us a message. It was like, do you want to reset to or format these values or reset to factory? Essentially, was what it was. And everybody was just kind of staring at it, like, oh God, what do we do? And I walked over. I was like, yes. They're like, oh my God, why'd you do that? So, well, let me ask you a question. Can you use this machine how it sits right now? No. Okay, so if I hit yes and it does something crazy and we can't use the machine, is it any different than what we have right now? No. Who cares? Go for it. Let's do it. Worst thing that's going to happen is nothing. Nothing's going to be better. But guess what? Hit that button, everything reset, totally fine. We're all good to run, right? Like we don't. It's paralysis by overanalysis. You sit and you think about something. You think about every single variable that could happen, and if you really think hard enough, you could think about like, oh, if I do this, it might offset this, and then an asteroid comes and smashes through the building and kills all of us. But that's never. I mean, that's not going to happen. Like you're convincing yourself of things that aren't real, and that's the confidence piece. Okay, and that's why I say the confidence will make you or break you on a growth trajectory by far. I'm not saying that you have to, be the most confident. Because again, I don't know everything, right? But I know who I am, I know what I am, and I know what I'm good at. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with you knowing what you're good at and you being confident in that. Nothing. And don't ever let anybody tell you any different. Because there is absolutely, in fact, that's probably one of my biggest strengths. And Kenny Rogers said, I know when to hold them, I know when to fold them, I know when to walk away, and I know when to run. That's me. I mean, and I have lived by that saying for years. And that's what's really helped propel me in my career. Now, that's another thing I kind of wanted to get into because what I really want to, again, really, really trying to target our younger audience, you know, guys that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years in the trade. Are you going to get much value out of this one today? Maybe not. Maybe you will. I don't know. Maybe you're like, yeah, I want to make a few changes here or there and see where I can get. Cool. I'm glad I could help you. Um, but I kind of want to give a little bit of insight to some of our younger folks that might be a little bit lost in the day to day, might not see the light at the end of the tunnel, might not see the future, might not see the potential. I went to trade school my junior, senior year of high school, got out of high school, graduated, and I went work in my dad's machine shop. He started in a two-car garage. We had a Bridgeport vertical mill, a Seiki vertical mill, pausing lathe, a LeBlanc lathe, and a weld table. That's it. A bandsaw. I think we might have had a surface grinder. And so we started there. And, as mentioned in my last episode, he had to work his regular job because he couldn't take a paycheck until we started getting cash in, right? And so there's a lot of nights I spent 11, 11:30 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning where we're just down there cranking parts all night to start making money. We moved from that building to the building next door. It's actually the Miller Meteor building in Piqua, Ohio. Um, I think that shut down in the late 80s, early 90s or something like that. But there was a assembly line for hearses, Miller Meteor hearses. And I only know that because, well, my dad told me and my grandma told me, but they had like a 30-year reunion or something. There's all these people showed up one day, like, oh, we used to work here. And everybody showed up driving a freaking hearse. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Well, then I later found out that our shop was actually in the showroom because they would manufacture these hearses that are on site. And then it was the showroom right there. They had several display vehicles. You come in there, just buy your freaking hearse. And so anyway, we moved into that building. We got another Seiki mill, a Warner Swayze turret lathe, a Cincinnati vertical, and another horizontal mill. I don't remember what brand it was. Um, that's where I started. You know, no air conditioning. So summertime in Ohio when it was 95 degrees out and 70, 80% humidity, it was about 120 in there. We were welding. Brutal summers. I decided one day, I was like, you know what? I had enough of this getting cut and burnt and smelling like oil all the time because we ran all manuals. I said, I'm going to join the military. Went in the Air Force at 19, spent 6 years there as an MP, went to sniper school, SWAT school, investigator school. Um, did a lot of cool stuff, but I just decided, no, this isn't for me. I want to go back. I want to make stuff again. And so I got back out. Now, where that altered my trajectory was I was not a very disciplined kid. And what I mean by that is 18 years old, man, I like to party. I like to party a lot. And all my friends really liked to party. So, showed up to work late, showed up to work hungover, didn't really care. I was just a kid living at home. I had no responsibility. My responsibility was to make enough money so I could party all weekend and then be broke all week till I got paid again. And then repeat the cycle every weekend. So, and it's not to say that, my parents didn't do a good job. I just didn't listen. I was a dumbass. Quite honestly, I know it. I can admit it. Again, going back to that humility thing, being humble, right? Right. Like I know where I've screwed up. I know where I've done things wrong, and that was one of them. And a lot of opportunity just handed there, and said no, I don't want it because another thing about me, I've learned the hard way my entire life. You can tell me don't do this. I got to find out for myself. And what they say, you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough, right? That's tough and be up. So anyway, I got in the military with a new um, understanding of responsibility, um, a new understanding of commitment, a new understanding of what it means to be a part of a team, a new understanding of leadership, a new understanding of followership. Like, I mean, totally revolutionized the way I thought of the world in general. Because I mean, just from a small scale perspective, I was 19 years old, given and carrying a gun at work every day, no matter what, M9, M4, every single day I was at work. I had to show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get our weapons from the armory and all that. And so I progressed pretty quickly through the military, just from that, learn the basic training in tech school, like work hard and had a lot of responsibility very quickly. And so anyway, when I got out, I went back into machining, and I'll never forget the first job I had as a civilian. I went back and, they're like, you guys can work as much as you want. I said, overtime? Dude, I'm in. Say no more because there's no overtime in the military, right? So I just went at it, man. I mean, 60, 70 hours a week, I didn't care. I would literally, and it got to a point where of being unhealthy, where, I mean, I dislocated my knee playing soccer one day and I went to work the next day. So I'm like, I'm getting that money. And so, again, going through life, I've lived and learned, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should take care of myself a little bit. I've learned to take days off now. But first job, man, I first time I ever ran a CNC. I learned in the first 30 days and was programming Mazak quick turn with a or I'm sorry, with live tools, um, setting it up, doing everything on my own. I had to learn very quickly because I'd never run a CNC. I'd never even programmed a CNC or anything like that before, right? So get that and kind of, get pushing through there and go to my next job. And I'm making, ground support equipment tooling for Boeing and things like that, different aerospace companies, and learned a lot there. Learned a lot from a QA guy that, he was our quality manager, an engineer, and I mean, just absolutely brilliant. in respect to GD&T, different types of drawing interpretations and things like that. Learned a ton from that guy. Awesome, awesome person. And so, I was working at this shop and I wanted to program. I didn't want to program with control. I wanted to get into Mastercam, do some CAM programming. There was only two programmers in that shop. So unless we got a massive influx of work or one of those guys quit, died, or got fired, it wasn't going to happen for me. So I said, you know what? Found a job ad that said, we need a tool and die maker, willing to train on Mastercam. Cool, I'm in. I applied. I left for the exact same money I was making at the current job. Didn't care. It was the opportunity. Went there, stuck with the most experienced guy in the shop, and absorbed everything I could from him. Everything. And then learned Mastercam. I got very, very good at programming, borderline obsessive. Spent a lot of time, of my own learning, practicing, researching, getting any insight I could anywhere. There and on SolidWorks as well. Learn how to model. Is making models as a mold maker is a big deal. You got to have a model, to program from, and you need to have a model that says what you made, so you have reference for future iterations. And so I worked there for a while, and then what I really found out there is I'm a pretty good leader. Like, I can organize well. I can multitask well. I can, uh, show people how to do things efficiently, and manage those people. So went and found my next spot after a few years. Started a machine shop for an existing company out in Washington, and got that thing up and running, and learned a lot about business there. Stuff I had no idea about. Of course, I always knew you had to make money and had to profit and all, but how, and all those different cost centers, all those different driving factors into your top line and bottom line. Started getting into sales there. But I mean, ran the whole thing up. So it was ops, it was QA, it was sales, it was all of it, right? And yeah, really, really smart people there as well. Really taught me a lot. Great CEO, great vice president, great engineering manager, all of them awesome people. And then led me to where I am today. So why do I tell you that? Well, I tell you that because I did not go to college at all. I did not. My mom and dad did not get me any of these jobs other than when I worked for my dad, right? In fact, everybody I've worked for doesn't know anybody in my family whatsoever. So none of this was handed to me. None of this was given to me. It was all earned. I didn't get where I am today on my own. Don't get me wrong. I worked through all this with some really amazing and really smart people. I took a lot of stuff and learned from them. And so what I'm trying to tell you is, don't ever think that because of your current position, because of your background, because of your upbringing, because of your location, because of any of these external factors, that you can't make it, that you can't do it, because you can't. I remember being younger, and my dream was always, I'm going to grow up and get married, have kids. My wife's not going to work; she's going to stay home with my kids. Everybody always told me that's not possible. You just can't. You just can't do that anymore in today's day and age. My wife hasn't worked ever, unless she wanted to. It was totally by choice, not out of necessity, because I was willing to make that happen. I was willing to do whatever it took. Doesn't matter. I'll work 2 jobs. I'll work 3 jobs. I don't care. But I will make sure that that's reality, right? And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. It just takes determination, right? It takes those other attributes I told you about earlier. Those are the big ones, right? Attention to detail will be another one, of course, in this industry. But you've got to do that. And I would say the last one I'll leave you with is, you've got to sleep with yourself at night. You do. You're not sleeping in, out of your body or whatever. So you have to lay down, you have to go to sleep, and you have to think about everything that you did throughout the day. And there's going to be times, I mean, there's times where it happens to me where people come to me with opportunities, and they could be great opportunities for me personally. Um, but I'm an honest guy, right? Um, because of that reason, I have to sleep with myself. Like I have to look my kids in the face and want to be the dad that they would want, right? I have to look my wife in the face and, you know, have her respect what she's looking at, you know? So I'm not here to lie. I'm not here to cheat. I'm not here to steal. I'll do things my way and I don't care what anybody ever says. There's been times even, throughout this podcasting thing that, we were working with some other people at one time and they came and said, "Hey, I want you to do an episode on this." And I said, "I don't really care what you want me to do. I'm not doing that because I don't believe in that. I don't support it." And they're like, "Well, it's a good thing for the industry." I said, "I disagree. I don't care. I'm not doing it and I won't do it because this is what I believe in. And my beliefs and my values do not bend for any amount of money whatsoever. I would never, have never, and can never sell out." And I think that catches up with a lot of people. Um, I think a lot of people get caught up in the money, and then they end up being unhappy with where they've gone or what they've become. I would rather have nothing and never compromise my values, my beliefs, and my convictions. And I think that's a really important thing for people to keep in mind and to understand, especially if you're planning to open your own shop. Um, because when you start a shop and you're a single man operation, your culture are your values. That's what the foundation you're going to build this company from. Your shop culture is built from your values. And if your values are shit, your culture will be equally shit because you'll start bringing in other people that embody that shit culture and those shit values. And you'll start having stuff come up missing from your shop. You'll start cutting corners to deliver parts. You'll start doing all these terrible things that will drive your company straight into the ground. So, personal conviction, personal belief, personal values, all those things, incredibly important. Remember, always be the person you want to see in the mirror. Don't ever compromise that. Um, so I'm gonna leave you guys with that. I just wanted to, like I said, I just wanted to do an episode of kind of help man motivate. I want to motivate people. I know how it is. I know how easy it is to some days just get stuck in that rut of I'm never going to go anywhere. I'm living, breathing proof, dude. Like I moved across the country 4 times. Um, I've jumped from job to job. I've never been afraid to learn something new, to throw myself out there. I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. I'll make it work. But you know, I didn't come from a silver spoon family or anything like that, so to speak. Um, and grit, determination. So um, if you want it and you believe it, you'll make it. And a little bit aside from the what we call the X's and O's and getting into a little bit more, philosophy and belief and those kind of things. Yeah, like I said, give you a little motivational episode. So, like I said earlier too, really appreciate the feedback. Been getting a lot of people messaging us, saying, really appreciate the insight and the ideas and kind of the X's and O's and nuts and bolts of how we do and what we do, and so it really helps us and really gives me an idea of kind of the direction to keep creating content and keep doing it. Because I'll be honest, there's some days I sit and I'm like, what's the value? Everybody knows this stuff. Sometimes it's just a different different way of hearing it or a different viewpoint. So, again, not getting into a lot of the dirt of what we do, but I just wanted to give some younger people some insight on what's out there, some ways to think about things as you're going through this career to open those doors. My uncle told me when I was a kid, I'm about 9 years old, be an asset, not a liability. And that's what I've lived by my entire life. You want to be an asset and not a liability. And if you're an asset, it'll take you far. So, anyway, yeah. So please subscribe. Next episode, we'll get back into some good stuff. Not that this was bad in my opinion. Maybe some people this isn't your thing or whatever. But again, I think some of the younger people need to hear it, need to see it, need to see that light at the end of the tunnel. And so yeah, next episode we'll get cranking. Leave us a comment. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell what you want to know about. I do these things on the fly a lot of the times. So you guys drop me a comment. Let me know what you want the next episode to be about. We'll try and fit it in. So subscribe. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.